so I'm gonna restart this. Okay, as if it were a fresh scan. Okay, all puts it in all three planes. Check this out. I like to look for this, the glenohumeral joint. You can see the glenoid right there and the head of the humerus. Over here, I like to look for the body or shaft of the humerus. Right there is probably where you can see the most proximal aspect of it. Over here. I like to find a balance between the humerus and either the clavicle. Ideally, you want the supraspinatus tendon, but you can't always find that in a localizer. So for now, I'm probably going to have to find a balance between the clavicle and the head of the humerus. This looks pretty good for now. Superiorly, you want coverage above the clavicle right there. I'll probably cut a slice just because you can see the AC joint right there, acromion clavicle, AC joint, acromioclavicular joint. Down here, distally, you probably only need like 6 to 8 slices inferior to the head of the humerus. Over here, I like to angle my reference line parallel to the head of, or I'm sorry, the body or shaft of the humerus. This looks good to me. Just for time's sake, I'm gonna save. I'm gonna drop the phase. Okay, let's see. So like I said, I'm kind of just tacking this on to the end of an exam, so I'm gonna recreate a fresh exam. So notice that we're planning a coronal. So our slices should be here, our FOV should be here. But we don't have an FOV. That's because these are obliqued right here. So what you need to do is in a coronal, your slices need to face anterior and posterior. So obviously this is looking at the anatomy anterior and posterior. You're not gonna have A and P over here. You will over here, but I wouldn't recommend touching that. Down here, you could see that the slices are obliqued. It's best to unoblique it down here. You want them to face anterior and posterior. This is still not there because now this one is obliqued. So we're gonna unoblique that one. Perfect. Okay, anterior and posterior this way because obviously we're looking at the side of the shoulder. Okay, so now I want to rotate this. This is pretty large FOV, so I'm gonna drop that just a little bit, scoot it medial. There we go, and maybe down a little bit because I don't really need much of the fat above the collarbone. Just kind of want the AC joint right here as well as all the internal structures and rotator cuff muscles of the shoulder. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna angle this with the humerus. So now that I've placed my FOV, it's gonna disappear because the shoulder is an oblique joint. And so once I start tampering and angling in all my other planes, I'm gonna lose this. So I want to place this and rotate it first, and then now I can tamper with the other planes. And now you can see that it's gone. Looks like my axial just came up. Let's bring up my fresh axial right here. We no longer use the glenohumeral joint anymore. I want to use the supraspinatus tendon. You can see a little bit of it right there because that is the most commonly injured shoulder structure. Okay, so coronals are gonna be obliqued. Typically, you're gonna angle parallel with it for a coronal, and you want to get a slice right through it. That way you get a good coronal image of it. Okay, now let's just wait for the rest. We already did the angling in the other planes, so once I oblique it, I know I don't have to touch the other ones. So even though they look weird, you don't want to touch those. Okay, so now I'm gonna do my coverage. You can see over here, you'll see this landmark as a coverage point for my sagittals, but you can see this marks the beginning of the scapular spine. You can follow it branching off this way. And then it ends in the acromion right there, where it would articulate with the clavicle as well. You can see the clavicle right there. Clavicle all in there. AC joint where it meets and articulates with the acromion. Acromion is the distal aspect of the scapular spine. The scapular spine comes all the way down here. Okay, so I just want to cover the scapular spine. Make sure I have coverage posteriorly, and anteriorly you want to make sure you cover the coracoid process, which is about right there. Okay. Looks good to me. I'm actually gonna re-angle that right there, and I'm gonna reposition it. And now I have to do coverage again. So I could cut one now, but I may have to add one on this side. Let's take a look. Just for good measure, I'm going to add that one back. Okay, just to save time, we want to drop the necks, or I'm sorry, the phase, but we're not going to touch that for now. This is a T1. You do want to check this. I shouldn't have run this. This is running because auto scan's on, and I copied all of these from up here, so it ran whatever was previously planned. Okay, so anyways, down here, just because they're linked, it's already copied and whatnot. You just want to check your TR because T1 range is 350 to 750, and that's the most likely weighting that you're going to fall out of range. Okay, over here, let's see this. I'm going to act as if it's a fresh scan, right? Over here, this is series 7 right here, so it's the new localizer. I want to bring up my new axial as well. So you want the FOV in the sagittal plane, right? Sagittal looks at anatomy left to right, so I'm going to make this face left to right. Okay, still not quite there because this is oblique slightly. You want to straighten that out. Here we go. Now you want to rotate your FOV. Most techs don't really like rotating their FOVs, but I'm a big fan personally. So just want to check that real quick. Okay, that looks good. Over here, our Coronal is currently running, yeah. We have that extra sagittal, which I did not mean to run. Okay, so over here, I am now going to oblique it with that supraspinatus tendon right there. You want this reference line parallel to the supraspinatus tendon, or you want your slices perpendicular to that. Okay, so now I'm going to wait for my coronal. I'm going to center it a little bit more. Tell right off the bat I can add 2 to that, but it's all going to come to my angling in the coronal plane in 20 seconds. Okay, so there are 2 methods in the coronal plane. You can either angle with the supraspinatus tendon right here. Looks like this individual has a little bit of pathology right there, a tiny bit of subacromial impingement, hence the fluid. So you could either angle with that supraspinatus tendon right there, or if you want it to be simple, you could just angle with the humerus itself right there. Okay, now you want to do coverage. I personally like to cover the deltoid laterally, and medially I like to cover where the scapular spine branches off right there. That'll generate what is known as like the Y, is what I call it. Let's see, our TR looks good. We're gonna save that. This one, I don't know if it's copied to this one or one of these that someone else scanned previously. So I'm gonna just copy it to my most recent. So you could angle right here with that that supraspinatus tendon, or you could angle with the humerus. I personally like to angle with the humerus just because you get the full humerus and some sagittal imaging. Very common to get a little bit of motion artifact generated from chest movement, from breathing. You can see like tiny little small lines going through there. Very, very common, just phase mismapping. have a little bit of bone pathology right there too.